Let's go now to our legal panel. Jesse Weber is the NewsNation legal contributor and Law and Crime Network host. And we also have Matt Murphy, former homicide prosecutor in Southern California, your neck of the woods, close to it at least, for this trial. Clearly, we reported on Friday that he had been breaking in, hacking into her email. Now we've got evidence, and we're hearing reports that he was breaking into her house and stealing photo spreads. Jesse, this is classic stalker behavior.
And it's also really not good for the defense. I mean, we talked about it last week, how this is really not a great case for the defense on a number of different angles, and why they admitted he was in the house. And after you're hearing about these past attempts, it would have been so hard to say he was never there or anything to do with it. So now they're doing their best attempt to say, well, he scared her, but it was an accidental death. They're trying to strike at the credibility of some of the prosecution's witnesses. There's only so far they can go. I mean, the idea, I know the defense has also opted for an expert to talk about suicidal risk factors, to say maybe it's not outside the realm of possibility. He broke in, had the syringe, wanted to kill himself in front of her. It's just, how much is the jury going to accept?
Matt, even if that's true, she was so frightened of him. Even if he didn't push her off that balcony, she was running from him and trying to get away from him. Isn't he still responsible for her death?
There's a concept in the law known as felony murder. And what's interesting is they actually charged a separate burglary here. So if somebody dies during the course of a felony burglary, which this would be, you're still responsible as a first-degree murder. So you're absolutely right. Even if she fell off because she's trying to get away from him, or they were struggling, or he's trying to hold her back, he's still good for first-degree murder under California law.
You say this syringe of nicotine is crucial because he claims, I just was there because I was distraught and suicidal, and I was going to, I assume, inject myself with nicotine in front of her.
Right. Okay, so the problem with that is that if you're going to commit suicide, there are 1,000 more obvious ways he would do it. He could take pills, he could shoot himself. Nicotine is not normally screened for in a tox during autopsies. So nicotine has been used in the past, it's very rare, we had one in Orange County, to murder people with the hope that they will go have the autopsy done and they won't be able to figure out what killed them. Okay, so it'll come back with a natural death.
They don't screen in autopsies for this.
They can, but typically it is not on the tox screen. So it's one of those, because who would think that you would murder somebody using nicotine? So it's not normally screened for. Barbiturates, heroin, methamphetamine, those are the types of things that are looked for in a toxicological screen during an autopsy. So nicotine, if you go online, it is very rare, but people who think they're being clever will try to inject that in their victim.
Where do you get it? I wasn't even, I didn't know it was so deadly, and I didn't know
Well, that's the thing. It's not a controlled substance. It's not a scheduled, it's not on the schedule of banned narcotics. It's not a Schedule I drug. So you can get liquid nicotine online. You can buy it.
And obviously, if his motive really was to commit suicide, it would be such an unusual, rare way to do it, number one. And number two, you're using a thing that would not be, that would leave a coroner mystified as to cause of death.
I will say this much, and this is not to, in favor of the defense, we're not dealing with the most normal of human beings here. And I think this past history, and even accepting that he confronted her, about a month before this killing happened.
At a red carpet event.
At a red carpet event.
All around, photographers all around. She's on the red carpet. He sees her and, by all accounts, completely loses it. And
that's what the prosecution's been focusing on, witnesses who saw that and how she reacted afterwards. The jury might wonder, what is he capable of and what is normal behavior? And so I think that's the idea of him breaking into the house in the first place and confronting her. That's abnormal. So what was he planning to do? If the defense can try to bring that out somehow, I'm not saying it's reasonable doubt, but maybe it would give a juror some pause. I don't know if it's going to work.
Matt, how damning is it that they're now stacking up all this evidence that he was breaking in even before this night that the murder or alleged murder happened, and was taking things from her or hacking into her email? As we reported on Friday, had a whole file of her email with a very pejorative title on it. He was clearly stalking her.
Well, I agree with Jesse on that. This is classic stalking behavior, and that is established really in a pattern. And so it's incredibly damning because this demonstrates this man is obsessed with her. So the prosecution will argue he's been following her. This has gone on for years.
Right.
And it is incredibly damning.
In fact, Drew Carey knew about it and knew about the history and the restraining orders, too, that she had gotten against him.
Properly argued, this is incredibly powerful evidence for the prosecution.
And it just makes it so strange why the defense, again, would call him. It's a conversation we had, because I understand that he spoke with Amie 2 days before she was killed. I believe the conversation was about forgiveness. I don't know how the defense is going to exploit that, because Drew Carey has been quite vocal that he believes Pursehouse is the one that killed his former fiancée.
It's a huge strategic mistake, I think, for them to do that. They're looking for one or two lines that feed their theory.
Why though? Did you ever try a case where the defense did something as kooky as this? I mean, why would you? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure the answer is probably yes. But I mean, and just because Drew Carey is on the witness list doesn't mean he'll be in the witness stand.
Right. Well, they might want to see where their case goes. They also want to see the conclusion of the prosecution's case. They don't have to call him immediately. They might strategically call him at some point during the course of the trial.
I think maybe they're thinking that the star power of that might throw the jury off potentially. I think that if they think, they're going to think better of it. I just can't imagine they're going to make that mistake. He's a highly intelligent man who loved her, and given any opportunity, he's going to sink their defense. So.
And I'm not sure exactly what the timing is, but I believe that during the time that he was with Amie Harwick and engaged to Amie Harwick, she might have had at least one, if not both, of those restraining orders against Pursehouse.
I think you're right about that timeline, which, again, he would have known about. I was curious if you thought that maybe they want to call him, if he's convicted, in the penalty phase, because Drew Carey also has become public and said, I believe in forgiveness. I actually forgive Pursehouse. And I don't know if that's going to work, because, again, if he's convicted, it's pretty much clear he's going to get life in prison. So, I'm struggling, Elizabeth. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer.
Okay. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.